Okay, so this video is going to show you how you might create different styles of backgrounds for your prints if you don't just want to use solid colors of papers. So you are not limited to these ideas. I'm just giving you some different ways to think about things. So the first thing you might do is you might actually use your watercolors to create a background. Okay, so we could use different watercolor techniques. We always have this box of materials inside of it that you guys are always welcome to use. So you could just paint a quick little watercolor background. Okay, so I'm going to get a couple things so you can see. All right, so maybe I just want to kind of blend some colors together, create a gradient. I don't know, you guys can do whatever you want, but it can create a variety of things for you to try out. So maybe you want to fill this entire background with a couple different colors, just to give it a little bit of a different look. Now you could use some of those watercolor techniques that you know, like maybe you just want to sprinkle a little bit of salt on top of it. Okay, to create a little bit more of a texture. And then this could be one example of a background that you use to print on when it's dry. Okay, now you are not limited to just using watercolor. If you'd like to use regular acrylic paint or something like that, we can do that too. Another option that you might choose to use, and some of these materials you will have to get from me, is I have some containers of liquid watercolor. Okay, so they're a little bit different, as you don't really have to add water to them. So for instance, I would just give you a little bit in your paint palettes. Okay, and then I'm gonna use a couple different colors. So you'll notice these are a little bit different. They might even be a little bit brighter than regular watercolor. So I'm gonna use 3 colors here to mix. Okay, so you will still need a water cup to rinse out your brush in between, but you can see that these are gonna be some really bright colors to use. So whatever you're doing here, I'm gonna do a little bit of a wet and wet. So I'm gonna spray this to give a little bit of water to kind of create a cool tie-dye effect. Let those colors bleed together. So I could just let this dry and kind of expand and see what it does. You could also try using some of those things like the salt, or maybe even some rubbing alcohol. Let's see if this will work here, to kind of create some different effects. Okay, you can kind of see that moving around. The rubbing alcohol works really cool with that. So that might be some different things, and these are just papers to explore on, that you can just create a variety of backgrounds to print over top. Okay, so now this last one that I'm going to show you requires a little bit more setup of materials. Okay, and so I will walk you through where to get these specific things if you're going to choose to use this. Okay, so for this example, we're going to be using a different type of printmaking method, which is called monoprinting. Okay, so I have these things called jelly plates, and you'll have to get these from me. They will have 2 plastic sheets on them. You'll have to peel those off. They've been used before, so you can see they look a little dingy, but it kind of is like Jello. Please do not do this or bend it. These are expensive and they will break. So you'll want to make sure you have a piece of paper or something underneath of this. And how we use this is you will be using acrylic paint, okay? And we create layers. So So I'll give you the acrylic paint that you'll need for this. We're just gonna use a little bit. So you can see that this paint is almost gone, but I don't need very much of it. Okay, so I have my paint in there. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see. Okay, so then I'm going to take my brayer, as we use for our other printmaking, and we're going to push this paint around so it fills the entire area. We want to make sure we're not using too much paint. Okay, so then you're going to take your piece of paper. You'll notice that the piece of paper is a little bit of a different size to print on, so you might actually have to get 2 of those jelly plates from the box and just set them up like this so that it fills the entire paper. So then I would just like set this one here and make it longer. Okay, but I'm gonna just show you this now so that you can get the idea of the process. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my piece of paper and I'm just going to set it down. I'm also going to take an extra piece of paper, and before I rub this, I'm going to put this paper over top and I'm just going to rub. It just helps keep the paper underneath stay in place. So then I peel this off and we can see that we have a layer of color there. Okay, yeah, looks okay. But the cool part is we can layer on top of this. So I'm going to take what I call just a blank piece of paper. We're going to make a ghost copy, clean this off so we're not rinsing it off in between. So getting rid of any of that paint. So then I'm going to use a new color. And the color I'm going to use this time is I'm going to use a little bit of pink. Okay, so then here, instead of rinsing this off, I'm just going to get rid of that extra paint on there. I'm going to take this, use the brayer. Now I can mix colors together. It's important on these that we're using paint and not the printing ink. So now we could use stencils. I'm going to use some texture tools and I'm going to create a little design. Okay, so then I'm going to put this print right over top of it. Okay, so then we are going to put this down with your piece of paper again. Rub. Peel that away. And then we have some cool layers. So you could continue building up, and these will be, that will work as a really cool background layer if you'd like to. And you can do this to clean it off. Okay. Sometimes those create a really cool design too. All right, so those are just a few ideas. If you have some of your own ideas that you would like to use for different kinds of backgrounds, you can do that. So we have the jelly print background, the liquid watercolor with some of that rubbing alcohol, and then you can see where the salt technique is starting to dry a little bit with the regular watercolor. So those are some options for you. You're not required to do any of these things, but they could be something that you explore too. Now with the jelly plate ones too, you don't just have to do it on white piece of paper. You could use a colored piece of paper as well.